Okay. Hi, this is Geshe Michael Roach. Welcome to Peachtree World News. And I'm going to tell you guys about a book which we finished this morning. I keep telling you that, but this morning we really finished it. And it went to the final editing group. And that's Nick Lashaw's first book, which took about 6 or 7 years. And it's by Nagarjuna. And we kind of decided that Nick would be our Nagarjuna expert, and he's been working on Nagarjuna books. He's also finished, after finishing his first book, he's working on another one by Nagarjuna called it's the String of Precious Jewels, or the Ratnamala. And I'm sitting in Rosa Van Grieken's office and Ellie's office at Diamond Cutter Press. You guys might want to see it. This is where all the books happen and where they print everything. You can see they're working on a shipment of these incredible sets of books here. That's a secret that I'm not going to tell you about today, and you'll have to figure it out. We'll be announcing it about a week after this broadcast, so you'll have to wait for that. For the Peachtree World News today, I started something last time we met together on the World News, and I wanted to kind of continue with that thought. And so here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. Here we go. Oops, that's bad. Yeah. Here's our screen. Let me get this bigger. Something about Nick's new book that I think is really cool is that we did some kind of, because we have John Brady's database, we were able to do a very cool statistical stuff to study, not just to translate the 60 verses of Nagarjuna. By the way, the 60 verses means 60 proofs, or 60 verses on proofs that he uses for emptiness. And once you start studying Nagarjuna, you can see that after a while, he's just always proving emptiness. So when they call this book 60 verses on reasoning, what it really means is 60 verses to prove different kinds of proofs of emptiness. And I kind of mentioned this idea to you guys before, but I thought I'd like to spend some more time on it because I'm really proud of it. I don't think anyone's ever done this kind of thing. And I think it's very important. And that's that because we have John Brady's database, we can study more deeply the whole lineage since Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna is around 150 AD. You can say he lived 2,000 years ago. And I can just imagine him sitting in his cave or wherever he was. And he's got a little list of ideas that he wants to make sure to get into his book. And if you think about the process of being a writer, or the process, a lot of you guys are teaching, you're teaching classes. When you have to plan for a class, or when you're teaching somebody, you usually, I don't know about you, but I write down some ideas that I have that I want to share with people. And then personally, I find some pictures to illustrate those ideas. But I think all of us, we sit down before we give a teaching, before we give a class, and we write down different ideas we have. And I imagine, I'm sure that Arya Nagarjuna did the same thing. And by the time he started his 60 verses, I imagine he had written down probably 60 different ideas that he wanted to cover. I have this fantasy that he wanted to be 40 verses, and then it went to 50 verses, and then it went to 60 verses. And I imagine that he had a piece of paper sitting next to him with all these ideas on it, like 50 ideas, 60 ideas that he wanted to express. And then he wrote, this is one of his 6 most famous books. And he wrote down those ideas. He wrote down the 60 verses. And I want you to try to put yourself in his shoes. And I want you to try to think about this process. And in his heart, Arya Nagarjuna has 60 ideas that he thinks are very, very important for people that might help people. And then he starts writing his book. And then he finishes his book. And how they published books in those days, 2,000 years ago, I think there's in a little town or village, and he probably gets some guy to write it, scratch it out on palm leaves. And then, I don't know, his students start asking about it. Probably when he travels, he carries palm leaves with him. And they start spreading the book this way, you know. And what I was curious about, because we have John Brady's database, we can do 2 things. Once we translate the book, which we just finished this morning, the final translation and editing. Once we do that, once he finishes the book, we know the 60 ideas that he wanted to spread. We know the 60 verses. We know the 60 ideas. We can look at each verse and say, okay, this is the idea, which is the kernel or the core of this verse. And this is one of the 60 ideas he had in mind. And we can actually, so what we did, we made a list of the 60 ideas that he had. And then we did an interesting thing. We studied the ancient books of India, it's 2,700 books or something like that. And we have those, and we went through with the search program, and we found out which verses from Nagarjuna got spread by other people. So there was, I don't know, a couple thousand possibilities, a couple thousand writers from ancient India. And we did this study of how many of his verses, how many of his ideas got spread. And then starting around 1000 AD, starting around 1,000 years ago, we went through the Tibetan literature, okay? And we wanted to see how many of his ideas moved from India to Tibet, to the center of China, Tang Dynasty area, you know, how, and other places, Japan, Korea, how did his ideas spread? And what I was looking for was which of his verses were hits, like which of his verses started spreading. I guess if you write music, if you're a rock and roll star, then you write songs and you think some of them are going to be really popular, and some of them are. And then some of the ones you thought would be really popular are not popular at all, and they just die. And then some of the songs that you didn't think would be popular end up being very popular. And that's unfortunate because you have to sing them for the rest of your life at concerts because people want them, you know. So I think Nagarjuna went through the same thing. You see, some of his ideas caught on, and they became the lineage that you and me are studying now. Those are, and especially for emptiness, his ideas that caught on became the lineage, okay? And then what I was really intrigued by was, can we find verses or ideas he had that did not catch on? And he expected them to, he was hoping they would, and then they just didn't catch on. And maybe we could make Nagarjuna happy if we identified those verses that didn't catch on, and we kind of promote them for him, and we talk more about them. So here's some of the ideas that did make it. We talked about it once before, the first verse here. Here's a the one of the winners of the popularity contest for the last 2,000 years. And it's about taking position, taking a philosophical position. This is what I believe in. It's saying, this is what I believe in. And here's Nagarjuna's attitude about saying, this is what I believe in. And he says, those who are great beings take no position, and they never engage in dispute. How could there be some other position for those who have no position themselves? If we don't take a position, how can you disagree with our position? And how can you fight with our position if we don't have any position? Okay. And of course, what he's talking about is we don't take any position which is not coming from you. Okay. If you don't agree with my ideas, can you please appreciate the fact that the ideas you're hearing from me are coming from your seeds? You're creating the ideas that you hear me write about. So Nagarjuna, it's kind of a funny thing. Nagarjuna is saying, the ideas you read about in my books, they're coming from you. I don't take any, I didn't write any ideas. I don't take any positions. If you want to fight with me, in the end, you're just fighting with yourself. Okay, something like that. And I think his hope was that people would look into he wanted people to look into the mechanism of fighting or disputing or war, even war, and how can you have an argument, and how can you have a religious fight if the ideas you're hearing are coming from you? Okay, and it's a very beautiful idea. You gotta cook it. Okay. The next one was called, here's another verse, 31. We introduce them, those who lack an understanding of the meaning of that sheer absence, with simply getting used to hearing about it. Those worst of the worst who stop performing merit ruin their life. And this is a very famous verse, which did make it. It got famous. And he was saying there's two stages to studying emptiness. First of all, emptiness is what can bring you to total happiness. And a lot of people misunderstand it. So when you're teaching people emptiness, first you have to teach them to be kind and do good things for other people. And that gives them the seeds or the energy to go ahead and study emptiness. And if we don't encourage people to learn about morality or taking care of others first, and they jump right into emptiness, they can hurt themselves. And that thinking became a bodhisattva after Nagarjuna, okay? About a couple hundred years after Nagarjuna. So, all right, let's see the next popular one. We don't have a lot of time. I'd say the third most popular verse in history from this book is this first verse of the 60. Those whose minds have gone beyond the idea that things could exist or not, and those who no longer dwell there, understand that the meaning of a cause is the profound truth that there is nothing at all to see. And this is this kind of deep understanding that Jetsun had. And here's where it comes from. When Jetsun praises Gautama for teaching dependent origination or dependence, and because he taught emptiness in the dependence, that's why Tsongkhapa praises him. And that's actually Tsongkhapa singing a song that was written by Nagarjuna, about, what was it, 1300 years before him. And the idea is that there's dependence, which means that the world is coming from my seeds. And then there's emptiness, which means that there's nothing that's not coming from my seeds. And then both Tsongkhapa and Nagarjuna get very close to saying the fact that things are coming from your seeds means that they're empty. Okay. And really they should have made it longer. They should have said the fact that nothing's not coming from your seeds is emptiness, and that will save you. But what they're playing with and what they're I don't know, I see them like kind of naughty boys who are making a joke on everybody, and they say dependence is emptiness. They don't say if things could grow without seeds, that's their emptiness. They don't say that. They say the fact that things do grow from seeds is emptiness, which is not correct. Growing from seeds is a positive thing. Emptiness is a negative thing. But somehow they want to say something controversial to cause a trouble. And I don't know, that's some kind of deep technique of great Buddhist thinkers. They try to say things to cause a little trouble, and then they resolve it later. Okay. So you can chew on those three. Those are, I'd say, the top three of the top 10 in the book. The book is being worked on now. It'll come out. I really encourage you to get the 60 verses on emptiness, proving emptiness, translated by Nick Lashaw and myself. And there's 100 pages of analysis at the beginning of the book of how you can use Nagarjuna in your real life. And I look forward to sharing it with you in the new year. Okay. And by the way, don't forget to come to the Mixed Nuts New Year's show. All right. See you guys later. How do we go back here? Stop sharing. And thank you for listening. Bye.